Yo, what's poppin' everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Zach Lesage here. I'm just got back myself from Pittsburgh, and this update to the top 10 best lists is going to be after Pittsburgh. So we got our first major event in our formats for the 2023 season. A lot of things have changed. So updates to lists, archetypes changing around, all that good stuff. Stay tuned for a lot of really good things. In the pinned comment of this video, there are going to be the copy and pasteable versions of the deck list. So you can copy and paste them right into PTCG Live. If you're looking for any of the cards in these decks, go to Deck Out Gaming or Atlas Collectibles or PTCGL store with the discount codes that we have in our description. We got a lot of really cool things going on, so be sure to give this video a like, share with your friends, subscribe, and let us know in the comments what you think of the best decks. Whether you're heading to Barcelona, Curitiba, or anything else going on, be sure to watch this video and learn more about the metagame. That being said, let's jump into it. Be sure to check out all of the sponsors of the Shuffle Squad, whether you're looking for graded cards, you're looking for singles, sealed. We have all affiliate codes with all of our great sponsors, so be sure to check them out in the description below. Thank you so much for supporting us. Kicking it off at number 10, we have Charizard EX. Now, this is a list that I'm going to go with Charizard EX for now, but I do think this deck is kind of changing up. It didn't really do too well at Pittsburgh. I think a lot of players are just prepared for this archetype, and maybe decks like Tina V-Star do generally pretty well. I don't think Charizard's neither good nor bad. I think it's just kind of falls into the mid category, which is where we kind of get at the end of the top 10 lists at all. Does this deck need Arceus? Does it need Pidgeot? Is it better as a Lawson variant? I do think that there's a Charizard deck in the top 10, albeit the lower half of the top 10, but this is generally where I think the list should be at in some capacity. So if you're a Zard fiend, this is where it's at. If you have any suggestions on the list, let me know in the comments below. But this is what we got going on for Zard. We got to kick off the list somewhere, and maybe it was just too early for Zards. Like, the Obsidian Flames just released. Players are still acquiring cards. The format's still relatively new. Maybe they didn't want to necessarily play their first regionals with Charizard EX. As players maybe take out their counters in Lugia, like they'll cut the Cobalion, or maybe his Mew upticks or something like that, this deck could be a legitimate force in the metagame. So this is where we're at list-wise. We'll have to see how it plays out, but Charizard's kicking off our list at number 10. Let's see what we got going on for number 9. At number 9, we have Chien-Pao Bax. We have no more Palkia on this list. I will give us a little bit of a surprise. I've replaced it with Chien-Pao Bax. As the metagames turned a little bit more Lugia dominated and Miraidon dominated, I think this is just the better version of this deck, and this is the list that Lucas Singh, local from the Toronto area, played all the way to top 8. I think he had an incredible run with this deck, really taking inspiration from Kieran Farah's Worlds list. Now, this list seems to be very powerful in this certain metagame, and I really don't see any issues with it at all. It's very aggressive with a lot of item-based support, being able to search out whatever you want with Pokestop. You're ripping the top cards of your deck, and you're just really drawing into there. I just think that Chien-Pao Bax is probably the more aggressive version of the deck, and you might be able to compete better with Lugia. You might be able to better compete with Mew. You might be able to compete with Tina V-Star. Like, this is just probably a better version of the deck right now. And I think the Palkia version has kind of run its course. It has a poor Lugia matchup, and as we see with decks that having a poor Lugia matchup right now, it did see a lot of success at Pittsburgh, so stay tuned and see how it goes. But right now, if you are a Chien-Pao player, this is probably where you want to be playing at. This list might be a little bit low on the kind of top 10 decks, but there's opportunities for this deck to certainly have a glow up. And I think, like, this is relatively where I think this deck is. It's kind of a run hot deck, and that's where I really want to put it. I can't say this deck is better than a lot of the regular culprits that we have up at the top, and you'll see and you'll be like, yeah, you want to know, that probably makes sense. We'll have to see how it goes. But right now, Chien-Pao Bax finding its way into this metagame, being able to take those back-to-back major Okos by using Super Cold on Bax to load up a bunch of energies. What's going to be our number 8 spot? Put your best guesses in the comments. Might be a little bit low on this list at number 8, but we have Rapid Strike Urshifu with Inteleon VMAX. Now, this deck is really hard to place in the metagame because not enough people really play it, because not only is it a difficult deck to acquire, it's a difficult deck to play, and it does suffer to some poor matchups at the top, like Mew VMAX and Lugia. Now, that being said, I think Rapid Strike Urshifu and Teleon does have a pretty solid matchup against decks like Lost Zone Box, Lost Zone Kyogre, Miraidon. So as the metagame kind of shakes up, this could always be a solid call, but I think overall in terms of tournament effectiveness, I have to probably put it down at 8. I did go with the Giacomo and Tomb strategy that Alex and Josh have been playing for a while now. And their group and all that stuff, they've really been pushing that towards there. I just generally think that it's fine. It does have some properties against Lugia where it can be strong. We're going to have to see how it plays out going forward. So right now, I think Rapid Strike Urshifu seems pretty good. Just a little bit, like, there are some bumps in the road when it comes to playing this deck, and I think that's has a lot to do with, like, how it plays at Pittsburgh as well. Every deck can have those, though. Like, I think we're in a format where you can't necessarily counter everything. So this is generally where my list would be going forward. Coming in at number 7, we have Gardevoir EX. Now, this deck was played by a lot of top players at Pittsburgh, including Tord Reklev and Rowan Stavenau. They both made day 2, but they also didn't really compete. Like, they didn't get, like, that top 8 that they were looking for. I mean, obviously, when there's 1,800 players, a top 64, even a top 256 can be impressive. It's really one of those things where Gardevoir didn't necessarily place as highly as other decks, so that's the reason why it's down here a little bit more. I think a lot of it has to do with how slow this deck is to set up, and how long games can take. It really can be one of those decks where you're winning game 1, or if you lose game 1, you might just tie the series. I think that a deck like this is very good into the metagame. It might just have some struggles with our current time rules. 50 minutes is not enough time for Gardevoir, in my opinion. And a lot of it has to be said, like, a lot of the victories for Gardevoir are 1-0 victories, where the player playing Gardevoir wins game 1, game 2 doesn't complete, they win the series. So, that's where I think Gardevoir does struggle a little bit. The losses are really coming from time issues. However, the deck does have answers for everything. So if Gardevoir is more of your playstyle of drawing cards, accelerating a bunch of energies, or maybe you're playing in a best-of-1 tournament like a League Cup or a League Challenge, this might just be the deck for you. I don't necessarily think it's the best position in the metagame, but there's obviously a reason why I think it's at the bottom tier, like one of the bottom half of the top 10 decks list. Gardevoir is sick, don't get me wrong, and I think this is where my list is at for Gardevoir right now. We're almost at the halfway point of the list, and we have Mew VMAX with Fusion Strike. Now, this deck has seen a decent bit of success. I mean, it just won the World Championships. What really has changed, I cut the Vance Kelly's Box of Disaster from their list for a penny, and I made a few other subtle changes when it came down to it. Penny gives you an answer against Lost Zone Box decks, and I think that's really where Mew VMAX can struggle, is against Lost Zone Box decks. Lugia is playing Dark type attackers. Mew can definitely struggle a little bit here and there in the metagame. And especially with Miraidon and running Drapion nowadays, Mew kind of falls middle of the pack. Now, it does have some strong answers against Gardevoir, does have some strong answers against some other things, and it certainly can still compete with Lugia. So it kind of falls mid of the pack. I think Mew, there's got to be other decks that you might want to be running instead of Mew, and I think at this point you probably want to be playing Lost Zone Box, or maybe you want to be playing one of the other decks. If you're a Mew main, it's certainly not bad. I don't think it's a bad choice at all. Sometimes you're just going to lose to decks in general, but I saw a lot of top players, like even Bradner, Isaiah Bradner, that is, was playing Drapion in their list. I was sitting beside them and they had that, so keep that in mind if you're playing Mew. I think there's a lot of Mew hate that exists in this format, and if anything, it's only going to get continuously stronger. I myself played into a bunch of Spiritombs, and I was not playing Mew, so it always holds me back a little bit from this deck, is just the amount of counters available for it. And you might be like, yo, Zach, you're not saying that for Lost Zone Box. Like, when Strachey comes out, I'm just going to be as critical about those decks as always. I'm always going to try to use this channel to give you my opinion. Now, whether my opinion is biased towards my own testing or not, that's to be determined. But at the end of the day, we do have 10 solid deck lists to provide every week, so hopefully you enjoy those. We made it to the halfway point, and Tina has fallen from one of the top spots in the metagame to one of the middle spots in the metagame. And I think this is where the metagame has shifted up, where there are a lot of decks that Tina cannot really, not say compete with, but it has a lot of middle matchups or slightly unfavorable matchups towards the top of the metagame right now. As the metagame shapes up, or as players not necessarily tech for this deck has some opportunities to see success in the future. With a lot of the Lugia play that we saw at Pittsburgh Regionals, Temple of Sinnoh is a natural addition to this deck. You do have to watch out for Jet Energy, but I mean, make sure you're playing Temple after the Jet Energy, because it still counts, you can still Lost Zone those. Choice Belt works really nicely for V-Guard energies that Lugia does play. On top of that, there are a lot of 310 HP Pokemon in the format, like Mew VMAX, or just in general, you could see success with it, even using Cramorant with Choice Belt, really forcing your opponent to get around those. So I think this is really where the list is at. Not really too much, but Tina's a little bit more mid now. I definitely rode this deck a lot at League Cups and League Challenges. I'm off Tina for now, but I don't think I'm going to be off for too long. I think Tina's just a really good deck, and it found itself on some hard times. Could be a really good play going forward, and it did see success, including a top 8 at Pittsburgh, so I do think this deck has the potential to see some success for sure. If you asked me a week ago, would I be putting Miraidon as high as I ever thought I would be, I would not be thinking that at all. But I do think I do think that Miraidon EX is quite a strong deck to check out. So it's one of those things where it came first at the Champions League in Yokohama. It came second at Pittsburgh Regionals, had another top 8 appearance, and was played a decent bit at Pittsburgh as well. This is just Jesse Parker's list. I think that they got it correct when it came down to it. There's a few changes here that I like compared to my own list. I was sold on Flying Pikachu V over the Zeraora because it is a 4 Steel Stone for your trading target. No, you don't need Flying Pikachu V Max off the top because you have enough Pokemon in play that your opponent could boss or Kyogre or Sableye around them that it doesn't matter anyways. This deck is just a consistent, hard-hitting deck. Don't really need Path anymore because there's not really too much Path in the format. That's definitely going to change some things up anyways. But yeah, it's a solid pick. It's not my favorite deck. I'll be completely honest. I do not have faith in Miraidon myself, but I do think it's well positioned. It's not a deck that I think I'm going to be playing at a regionals anytime soon. But you want to what? Catch me, maybe catch me playing the deck. I don't know. I can't, you can never say never. You can never tie yourself down to anything in Pokemon, and things change so often. So if you're a Miraidon player, this is the time to be playing Miraidon. I'm not sure if Miraidon's going to stick around forever, so get those gameplay play in while you can. I do think this deck actually gets better by 151, so if you don't have the cards for this deck, definitely hit up the discount codes at PTCGL Store, Atlas TCG, and Deck Out Gaming to pick up some cards for this deck. As we look into the metagame, we are going to split Lost Zone Turbo and Lost Zone Kyogre going forward. I did that last week, but I just want to let everyone know that I am going to treat them as separate decks as such. This is a list that's heavily based off of King Dre Clouts, Dre Aldoretz from the Shuffle Squad's list. I do think this deck does need Hawlucha nowadays, so I did cut the Echoing Horn from his list for Hawlucha. I think that this is just a solid deck in general, where it's like, you can maybe outspeed a Lost Zone box deck, or maybe you have a little bit more, a slightly different tool set than a Kyogre deck does. Lost Zone Turbo is just a fantastic deck across the board, and it's very similar to Kyogre, and if you didn't see Kyogre by now, maybe you'll see it in the next couple decks. No foreshadowing there, right? But it is one of those things where either one of those two decks going forward is strong. Lost Zone box before we get the Jirachi that's coming out, presumably in our next Paradox set, or Paradox Rift or whatever. Looks like it should just remain to see successful. Deck does struggle a little bit against Lugia, but Sky Seal Stone Raikou might be able to get you there. Is this the best deck in format? I mean, no, we have it at number 3, but it could be. It has the potential, and it has been before. So keep that in mind as you play this deck. I think there's certainly a lot of really cool things going on with it, especially if you know what you're doing with it. Yo, here we are at our number 2 deck, Lugia V-Star. Now, this is my updated list since Pittsburgh, where I've cut a stadium for a penny. Just because I think that there's a lot of Lost Zone box decks, penny can be quite helpful against some of those. Penny's also a great way for you to reutilize Lumineon, or just lift up a 2-prizer, or maybe there's a bunch of cool things that you could do with Penny. Regardless, it's one of those things where I think that this deck is just really strong. Where I thought Tina was strong, Lugia has that same strength going on for it, where it's just like, yep, we can knock out a lot of our opponent's Pokemon, and we're probably a little bit more consistent. And we probably have a better matchup spread right now for the metagame. Even though Miraidon can be a scary matchup, I do think it's incredibly winnable because we're able to knock out 2 prize card Pokemon at a rate similar, if not faster, than our opponent. So keep that in mind as you play Lugia. But right now, I think Lugia is just a powerful deck in our formats. Relatively easy to play, so if you're looking for some solid cup challenge, whatever points, I'd recommend playing this one. Lugia is just a sick deck, so give it a whirl. Here's our number 1 deck. We have Lost Zone Kyogre. Now, this is the deck, the archetype, I should say, that won Pittsburgh Regionals. We have it here at number 1, a slightly different list than what Andrew Estrada played. And I think that I like Pokestop more. I think I just like my list more than I like Andrew's list. Lot of personal opinions when it comes down to it. I'm sure Andrew would probably be like, I like my list more than Zach's list. And at the end of the day, I'm not the regional champ of Pittsburgh, and Andrew is. I have put a lot of effort into Lost Zone box decks. I would definitely give this archetype a try. It can be incredibly difficult to play. Kyogre is not going to come out every single game, but this is kind of a hybrid of a turbo Lost Zone box deck, and it does have slightly better Miraidon matchups. I do think it has a better answer to Lugia than Sky Seal Stone, Raikou, and in general, I like having the option of Kyogre, period. And maybe that's a playstyle choice between this or Turbo, but I do think that this one edges out slightly in our current metagame. Is this list going to change? Yeah, maybe. I do think that something like this, like maybe Hawlucha is something to cut out as other Lost Zone box decks are not seeing success. A lot of Lost Zone box decks need Hawlucha now because other lists are playing Hawlucha, and you can just go Sableye and add extra 2 damage counters. A lot of the times, people just lose by a damage counter or 2 because they improperly place it with Sableye, or you can just go 10-10 on 2 Comphase and Sableye and win the game. Giving yourself those opportunities really allows this deck to see success. And in our current metagame, this is the list that I'd be wanting to play if I were to be playing Kyogre. So that's what we got going on for our number 1. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Again, let us know in the comments. If you're looking for any of these cards, go to PTCGL Store, Atlas TCG, Deckout Gaming. All of those links to discount codes are in the description. And of course, sleeve up your decks in some Ultimate Guard Katana sleeves or Cortex sleeves. Let me close things out. That's what we got going on for this video today. Hopefully you enjoyed watching and learning more about the top decks. Try to do these videos every single week, so if you're looking for the way that the metagame is shifting, or you're just looking for a great spot for lists, be sure to tell all your friends that the Shuffle Squad on Wednesdays is where it's at. Again, I'm Zach Lesage. I'll catch up with all y'all later, and before you head off, give this video a like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments if you enjoyed it or not. Peace out, and have a great one. You made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching this entire video from the Shuffle Squad. Honestly, from the bottom of our hearts, we appreciate each and every person that supports our content, watches what we have going on every single day, every single week, even from time to time, and continuously allows us to have a forum to project our creative content towards the Pokemon TCG community. So if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and even leave a comment to help boost the YouTube algorithm. That being said, we'll catch you with our next video. Thanks again. Take it easy.